So I've been waiting for the new Jason Bourne movie for a really, really long time. I'm a huge fan of the original trilogy. I've watched them all probably like over 10 times. But for me, they're probably some of the greatest action thrillers ever made. So, seeing this movie, did it live up to the original movies, which I was really hoping it would? And the answer to that question, no. This movie is extremely disappointing. And what hurts about this movie so much is when you start watching it, it looks really, really good. The movie starts out perfect. The first half an hour of this movie is perfect. Like, it starts out with a black screen with your Jason Bourne. He's like, I remember everything. The movie just starts up, and we can see all the people that Bourne killed. He looks really tortured. Like, he's been through hell. Like, you know, he's in a lot of pain. And we just see him punch someone out with one hit, and that was really, really cool. And then it starts, we get introduced to Elisa Vikander, I think that's how you say her name, and she's like this really determined character. We have Tommy Lee Jones, who's introduced, and then we have Nikki, who comes back, and in the last movie, she went into hiding, so she's back now. And basically, she has nothing to lose now. She just wants to do right. She wants to expose the programs because she thinks, you know, people have a right to know about this. So she hacks in to basically the program and gets all this information, and she finds information about Bourne. Right? So she meets up with him. And there's this amazing, basically, motorcycle chase. It's one of the best action sequences in a Bourne movie. We're also introduced to the villain, the Asset, and he is really, really evil in this movie, and he's a really good villain. We get introduced to him. He's torturing some guy in this bathtub, and he shoots him in the head, and from that point on, we know this guy is sinister. He's evil. He'll do what it takes. During this scene, Nikki and Bourne are talking, and Nikki's telling him that she's going to release all this information. People have a right to know. And Bourne's just basically says, no, I'm not going to do this. All it's about now is surviving. And then, of course, we have the great chase, and then Nikki dies. And the scene where Nikki dies is one of the best scenes in the whole movie. It's really touching in a way, and it's just, you feel like it's going to be an anchor for the rest of the movie, the anchor to make Bourne move, you know, because he takes information, he takes that from her, and it's just like from that point on, you know, Bourne's going to do something about it. But then after that, the movie just plummets. It just plummets downward. We get introduced to this absolutely pointless side plot about this social media called, I don't even remember what it's called. That's how forgettable it is. Tommy Lee Jones' character has been funding him secretly because he wants to use the social media outlet to basically, for surveillance, to be able to see everything everybody's doing. And it just feels pointless. It just doesn't fit into the rest of the movie. The scenes feel out of place. They just slow down the movie. It's like, who was thinking of that? I don't understand how in the final draft of the screenplay, for example, how this was kept. How did this stay in the movie? It doesn't make any sense. It really bogs it down. And you think that the movie is going to be about Bourne and this information. Like, he's going to become like the new Edward Snowden kind of thing. He's going to be a greater part of the world. He's not just running for himself anymore. He's going to help so many other people. He's going to do something great here. That's what you feel this movie's going to do, right? After Nikki died, he's going to do what she would have done. No. That's not what this movie's about. Instead, what this movie's about is Bourne's father. Bourne's father.
They said my father was killed by terrorists. He wasn't killed by terrorists, was he?
That's what it's about. About how he started the agency, right? And I guess he regretted it or something. Or something. I guess what happened is there were some things about it he didn't like, so he said he was going to expose the very thing, Treadstone, that he created. And he didn't want Bourne to join because he didn't want him to become a killer, basically. So what happened is, because he was going to expose information, they they killed Bourne's father. And then that was Bourne's motive to join the program. That's what this movie is about. For the most part. Are you kidding me? Are you serious? That's the best they could come up with. After 9 years. That's it. That's all they could do. It's not like it's bad. It's just nowhere near intriguing as the original 3. That's all they could do. I find that hard to believe. The story of this new movie just isn't as compelling as the original trilogy at all. And I think a big part of this is a screenplay. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. Paul Greengrass's direction is great in this movie. The performances, for the most part, are great. The problem was the screenplay. And I believe this is because Tony Guillory is not involved in this movie. Yes, he did do the Bourne Legacy, which wasn't good. But give him another chance. He messed up, okay? You know, he wrote the first 3, and I think he was a big part because, and he didn't write this movie. He wrote the first 3, but he had nothing to do with writing this movie. And who wrote it is Paul Greengrass, which is good. I like Paul Greengrass is great. And then Christopher Rouse, I believe is how you say his name. And Christopher Rouse, or Ruse, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it, but he's never written a movie before. He's never. If you look on his IMDb page on writer, he has never written a movie before. Are you fucking kidding me? Somebody who has never written a movie before is writing a Bourne movie. Are you serious? If he wants to write another movie, fine, write another movie, but you can't go write a Bourne movie as your first movie. That can't happen. You can't do that. And I have to admit, there is something interesting about the villain. How he basically, when Bourne kind of exposed the Treadstone, how he was captured and held in prison and tortured for 2 years. So he wants revenge. That aspect is really good. But then do something that even is more stupid. What they do, and it's just so far-fetched. They have that assassin, the asset, be the same person that killed Bourne's father. It's like, that's so far-fetched. Are you serious? It's ridiculous in my opinion. Not to mention the fact that Nikki is ignored. The thing they set up with Nikki is ignored. So my question is, why kill Nikki if you're not going to use that? I thought that would be the anchor for the rest of the film, but she's never brought up again. I don't think Bourne even says her name once or just says anything about her. She's completely ignored. I thought she was going to be like the setup for the rest of it, but then why is she completely ignored? She's nowhere brought up in the rest of the movie. And this movie, you just can't help but feel this movie, it does not justify its own existence. Why does this movie exist? For what reason? It doesn't seem, it just feels kind of the same as the first 3. Not that that's 100% of a bad thing, but there are just too many things that just feel exactly the same. And it's so dumbed down. See, what this movie feels like to me, it just feels like it's for the fans. It feels like they just came back, and even Matt Damon has said this in like interviews. He's like, oh, you know, people really want to see this movie. It's not something to be shared lightly with.
Well, it was that thing of people coming up that, and they would do it to me, and they would do it to Paul Greengrass, the director, and that after years of that, it gets humbling, you know, and I've certainly made a lot of movies that nobody went to see. So when you have a loyal audience that's asking for something, at a certain point we looked at each other and said, let's get off our high horse and do it.
I want to say something though. If there's something good, people are always going to want more of it. Always. Always, always, always going to want more of it. It doesn't mean you should come back unless you truly know you have something good. Otherwise you do not come back. Alicia Vikander's character, like I said, I think that's how you say her name. She's really bad in this movie.
I know you're looking for something. Let me help you find it.
Give me that phone.
Yes, sir.
I thought she was boring to watch. She was completely emotionless.
I'll Alpha Team report.
What's happening, Heather?
Alpha Team has been responding.
Bravo?
Everything about this movie just feels stale, tired. Even the soundtrack. I want the good parts of the soundtrack or just parts that are reused. The soundtrack of the first three was amazing. It just feels bland in this movie. There are a couple good soundtracks that are new, but a lot of the good music is just reused from the first three. Only a couple good tracks I can think of that I heard throughout this movie. That's not to say this movie is far better than your average action movie. It's still pretty good, and for one, the action sequences are great. They're all really good. There's this one fight at the end of the movie. It's excellent, excellent. Probably not as good as the Bourne versus Dash fight, but it's still really, really good. There's the Las Vegas chase. It's pulse pounding. It is really good. Great car chase. Bourne's driving away, and the villain's in this huge SWAT truck. He's like running a whole bunch of people over. This guy is evil. But what he does is he crashes into Bourne's car, and he's like trying to drive Bourne into this building. Like Bourne's car's in front, the SWAT truck is behind. He's like driving Bourne into this building. And I was just thinking, that's how Bourne killed all those people in the previous movies. In Supremacy, that's how he killed Krill. He did the same thing. He smashed him in. Same thing in Ultimatum with a pause. He didn't kill him, but that's how he stopped him. And I thought that was really cool, just seeing the reverse done on him. Now this isn't a big thing, but I just thought that was like really. I thought that was really cool to see. Probably one of the best car chases ever. Not as good as like the Bourne Supremacy Moscow chase or anything like that, but it's probably one of the best car chases I've ever seen in a movie, for sure. Also, Matt Damon is great as Jason Bourne once again. He's really good as Jason Bourne. He really gives more of a he holds back a lot, and that's kind of what Bourne is. Like, he doesn't go over the top. He really understands the Jason Bourne character, and he once again is really good. Despite the script not being as good, he still is very good in this movie. He still lives up to the character. And one thing is, Bourne is very vulnerable in this movie. Maybe it's because he has all his memory back, but there's one fantastic scene between him and Tommy Lee Jones. And Tommy Lee Jones is also great in this movie. Yeah, he's just kind of a typical bad guy. Some evil old guy who wants to kill Bourne.
You're too naive to see the truth. There's no bringing in Bourne. He has to be put down.
Tommy Lee Jones just does such a great job. I mean, you can't go wrong with Tommy Lee Jones. He's truly great in this movie. But there's this one great scene where Tommy Lee Jones basically tells Bourne, you're not going to find any peace. Not until you admit to yourself who you really are.
You're never going to find any peace. Not till you admit to yourself who you really are.
I volunteered because of a lie.
It's time to come out, Jason.
Not for you.
About how, once enough time has passed, they'll be able to bring him in again because he's a patriot. I liked that whole aspect. I liked it. It wasn't great. Nowhere near as good as the originals, but it was good. It was good. And that's what I have to say about this movie. It's good. But this movie shouldn't be good. It should be fantastic. It should be great. It should be one of the best action thrillers ever made, and it's far from it. Far from it. And I think a big part of this is they just didn't change anything. It's the same thing. I just want to say that this movie is nowhere near as bad as people are saying it is. There are some critics who are calling this movie the worst movie of the summer, terrible movie. It's a good movie. It's just really disappointing. I mean, for example, I think it has a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is not that bad. Some critics are really hating on this movie's at least a 70%. 56 is way too low. I'm shocked that it's even getting to be that low. And Rotten Tomatoes even has been annoying me, because think about it. Rotten Tomatoes right now is saying that Ghostbusters is better than Jason Bourne. Ghostbusters are like a 70-something%. I'm talking about the new Ghostbusters. That's better than Jason Bourne. Are you kidding me? So, I mean, if I were to rate this movie, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. It's a good movie. It's good. It's good, but it's not great. It's nothing like it. It's nothing like it should have been, and it's a major disappointment. Honestly, I would rather go rewatch the original trilogy than watch Jason Bourne again. And I've only seen Jason Bourne twice. And I've seen the original trilogy movies like 10 times each. And I'd still rather go watch the original trilogy. And that's saying something right there.